Hello, I am Dr. Faith Mashele. I'm a faculty member at the Gibbs Business School. And today we're having a conversation about the Logistics Achiever Awards. And with me, I have Jonathan Mphake from SBV. Jonathan, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much.
On a regular day, if somebody was to ask you, what do you do at SBV? What is SBV and what do you do specifically at SBV?
So the nice title is National Fleet Manager. It sounds very exotic and wonderful and everything, but it's basically looking at the health of all things vehicle related for SBV. We are definitely a transport company. It might be different to a normal FMCG type company. And we distribute cash. So we are the sole collectors of brand new cash from the Reserve Bank. We distribute cash through the market, even to the point where the retailers, that commercial banks and so forth. So on a normal day, I have to make sure that all our vehicles are out on the road. They are worthy of the brand that we have, and they're worthy of keeping our drivers safe so they return home safely to their loved ones. So in a nutshell, there's a lot of other scary things that we can't talk about in public that are secrets for us. But in a nutshell, that's what really I do at SPV.
Okay, so you talk about cash and supply chain. So this is a cash supply chain management solution. How cool is that?
No, very cool, very cool. We were formed 38 years ago by the four major banks. Actually, an interesting story, the SBV, actually the S stands for Standard Bank. And the B is actually Barclays before FNB became Barclays. And the V was the old Volkskas Bank, and that's more remnant of ABSA. So they wanted to have a company that takes care of the distribution in the supply chain for cash. There's also a component of looking at what is needed, what type of cash, what cash is needed at every single cent and every single aspect of the South African economy. So it's definitely a supply chain. It's a weird, different supply chain to my past, but it's definitely something that has meaning in keeping the economy moving safely.
Okay, awesome. Now, SBV received a gold award at the Logistics Achiever Awards. Do you want to tell us about your entry specifically around the fleet management?
Yes. So in the cash distribution or the cash in transit market, fleet management sometimes becomes something that's not looked at really in focus. The big high-end focus is risk mitigation. You'd imagine South Africa has one of the highest cash in transit robbery rates in the world. We overtook Brazil. And it is absolutely systemic of the big crime that we have in the country. So a lot of it is looking at surveillance vehicles. We're looking at, telematics tracking systems. Would be important to know where our vehicles is at every second. So a lot of it is very risk averse. We took an approach when I joined SPV to say, what are those fundamental fleet management principles that are important to make sure the health of the vehicle is taken care of, that are irrefutable and irrevocable, versus also enhancing the risk mitigation through data usage. So we took an open approach to say, what are best practices? But we don't just want to do the best practices. We want to make sure that we go above and beyond. So we looked at it in a framework where we said, in a control tower methodology or end-to-end supply chain management, they always talk about people, process, and technology. And who are the people? These are the people who are normally neglected, not looked at. And these are the people who risk their lives. Their families don't know whether they're coming back home at the end of their shift. How do we engage those people? What processes do we have from a fleet management perspective to enhance vehicle health status, to enhance doing things different, which dovetails to the technology? What technology elements do we leverage upon? I spoke about telemetry, and there's a whole lot of other digital revolutions that's happening in the fleet management space. How do we apply those in synergy so that the data we have actually gives us insights? That insights talks back to the people, because once we understand our whole supply chain, we understand where the risk, where the hotspots are. We have a model that we have internally that predicts events of cash in transit based on historical data. If we understand all of that, we are able to route schedule our deliveries. We are able to keep our promise from a customer centricity perspective to the 4 major banks, to the other banks we deal with, and the retail customers as well. But that's all encompassing to say, how do we turn normative delivery, I need 100 million to be delivered here, to total end-to-end supply chain management. And we said we need to do those principles. And also, as an added benefit, one of the things that we are doing, we didn't just stop at winning the award. We are actually embarking on a journey where we will be implementing RTMS. We hope to be the first cash in transit company to have RTMS. And for those who might not be familiar with it, RTMS is almost ISO for fleet management.
Yes.
What are those best practices that are infused in fleet management to ensure road safety? Because the other epidemic or pandemic that we have in South Africa, especially this time of year, is road crashes and fatalities. And how do you take the people, training, engagements, and that's one of our biggest core success rates. How do we engage in a language in which our people will understand and make them buy into this change of how we're doing things, make them buy into having video telematics in their vehicles? Why are you tracking me? Why are you looking at me? No, there's all these other benefits, and make them actually understand what we're doing so that they are safe, but also the other road users on the road are safe as well. Because we said we have a responsibility as a very ethical company based on our values to make sure that we guard not only the South African economy, but guard the other road users as well.
Love it, love it. Now you speak about success rates, and I want us to maybe step back and take it to a supply chain space again to say, what numbers did you see when you implemented the solution? So we know we talk about cost savings. Are these the things that we saw? And I love how you said you've been in supply chain. In your past life, it didn't look like this. So get us to paint that picture around what do the numbers, and when we speak success rates, what does that look like in your world?
So one of the biggest issues and problems that we faced in SBV, like most transporters, was motor vehicle accidents or crashes on the road. Part of what I was just speaking about now. And we said we want to put in a proper methodology that gets us to reduce this. And over the past we took a 7-year sample, and we looked at what are those accidents, how are they done, what causes, what are the root causes, and how do we put a plan in place to reduce those. And I'm happy to say that we reduced it by over 12%, which was the best in the past 7 years. We reduced the number, the severity of the accidents. Yes, we had third-party accidents. There are accidents that do happen, but we reduced that. And from a customer promise perspective, in aligning our route management tools, we actually improved OTIF by, I think, about 6-7%, because we had to now say, how do we absolutely use the data, but not just plan and leave it, but plan versus actual and results. From a cost saving or cost mitigation perspective, the biggest thing in fleet management you will hear the guys talk about is cents per kilometer or cost per kilometer. What we eventually did is we said we want to use those metrics, understanding the depth of everything. In fleet management, there's tire wear, there's fuel consumption, there's all types of things that go into it. And we avoided cost by over 20 million rand, but increase the efficiency and the uptime of the vehicle. So a huge regiment in preventative maintenance, a huge regiment in understanding, and actually from purchasing the right vehicle for the right applications. We changed all of that, and we saw the 20 million. From a sustainability, which is another big element, and we have a very big ESG drive in SBV, especially with our partners, the 4 major banks. And we said that we want to make sure that we reduce not only liter per 100, which is fuel consumption, but reduce carbon emissions. And in a fleet that's over 1,000 vehicles, we reduced carbon emissions by 3.14% in our financial year, which starts in June and ends in July. So we said, we saw great technical, very substantive results. The other part that we saw that's sort of in an intangible result was our drivers were more motivated. our drivers were so encouraged.
Yeah.
SBV has the lowest rate in cash in transit robberies in the whole industry. But also what happened is because of the science and everything that we put in place to change certain things, the drivers felt more confident.
Yeah.
The drivers felt more, supported and heard and understood.
Yeah.
We even had a collaboration where some of the design elements of the truck, they actually contributed to that. So you have this technical, OTIF, on time delivered in full, cost avoidance. You have the tangible financial and performance matrix. Then you have this where you have the drivers now understanding the why, buying into it, and actually doing some incredible things to make sure that we keep the economy moving. I always put an adage to say, I love talking to the drivers, not at the drivers.
Yes.
And when you take that human being who is keeping the economy moving forward into account, the results have been really fantastic for us.
Yeah. In fact, I'm glad that you're going talking about the human element, because I recall as one of the judges when we were evaluating your entry, one of the things that stood out for us was how you have made the people at the center of your solution, because it's one thing to chase the numbers, it's one thing to put the processes in place, it's another thing to look at the system that will pull it all together. And I wanted you to also just go back to, because that was a big part of, that's what was left when you were done. I mean, when you had presented and we had asked the questions, the importance of the people. Do you want to talk about that ownership and the stuff that you've done in terms of the training around just the people element, how you were able to elevate it?
Oh, brilliant. So one of the things that I realized when joining SPV, and I have to say I had huge support from leadership, Karishni Gavenda, Voter, Tabo, Hamilton, Mark, and the rest of the EXCO team. There was really great support to say, this guy is coming in, he's saying all of these different things, but let's partner together.
Yeah.
And I said, and the tagline was exactly that, talk to the people, not at the people.
Yeah.
And we said, we're going to have training, we're going to have normative driver training. We're going to teach the drivers, they know how to drive, we're going to evaluate them. But one of the other things that we did was a driver safety engagement program. And that spoke to us we did it in a bit of a different way. We would go to each and every site, talk to the drivers, give them a safety talk, and actually explain to them, this is why we partner with a C-Track. This is why we partner with the Standard Bank Fleet Management, and actually get into their heart and mind on what is happening. How are they supported? From a tire perspective, we ship in a specific tire for SPV only. So we went to that process of talking to them. The other part we did is we had these driver safety engagements where we would simulate, what does it feel like to be drunk? What does it feel like to be fatigued? What is it?
Drunk?
Yeah. So it's interesting. We put these goggles that blur your vision, and we give you an obstacle course. We say, okay, let's do this. And other people are like, I can handle my drink. And it goes very, very wrong. But what's nice about it is while they're conscious and they're like, oh, this is what it means. This is the effect of not wearing my seatbelt. We do this thing called a seatbelt convincer, where we strap them in and we simulate low G-force impact of not wearing your seatbelt. And the guys are like, okay, this is really something that's not good. And then we do toolbox talks, we engage. But the big facet, we have a culture in SPV that we call it people first. And it's a people-centric mindset for the organization, that we're saying that, you know what, we want to get to the heart of the people. We want to understand you. We want you to understand us so that we can collaborate and actually achieve greatness. So many times as organizations, we have a top-down approach. We have we speak this boardroom language. We have all this PBIT and all of these costings that we want to achieve, and net profit and dividends and all of these things. But the people on the ground don't understand what we're building. There's a saying that I always a short story. I might not say it correctly, but I remember the story when there was a guy, they were building a temple. And the guy walked up to one of the guys and he said, what are you doing? He says, I'm a bricklayer. Going to the other guy, what are you doing? I'm a painter. And he said to another gentleman, what are you doing? And he says, I'm helping to build a cathedral.
That's it.
So he understood the vision.
Yeah.
And he understood that his part in the vision contributes to this greater part. I always say to the fleet management team, what is your job? And they're like, okay, I'm a system technician, I'm a fleet controller. No, your job is you're bringing the drivers home safe. Oh. That's your job. Our KPIs are great, but we have another KPI. Yeah. If I change the tire, I service the vehicle, I make sure the license, I do everything that might seem mundane in fleet management. I look at routing, scheduling, I look at technology and everything. Yeah. But what is my job? I keep the economy moving and I bring the drivers home safe. And we made it very clear to them that the number one asset of the business is the people.
Yep. And then you talk about SBV having the lowest rate in terms of robberies. What is this recognition? I mean, you are an award-winning supply chain professional, and not just a professional, but the function that you're doing now has been recognized. What does this recognition mean to you?
I think for me personally, it's a growth, and it's something that says you're on the right track.
Good.
And one of my mentors always said, when you have success, it doesn't mean you rest. When you have success, it means you challenge yourself to do even more, to stay relevant and still chase after that even more success. Yeah. So to me, it's like, yes, it's recognition. It's for the whole team. It's not just about me. It's for the whole SPV. For SPV, it says to our customers, it says to all our stakeholders, we don't just want to do just the bare minimum that the standard requires. Yeah. It says to us, we want to be the best in every little thing that we do, so our customers can have confidence. From the South African Reserve Bank to the 4 major banks, to the retailers and every other customer we cover, they have confidence that we are transporting their money safely. We are doing it with a spirit of excellence. The enemy of excellence is just doing things just for good enough sake. But we're saying that we're chasing excellence and we're not stopping chasing the excellence. So that they know the promise we make to them is a promise that we actually keep.
Yeah. So now talking about chasing excellence in closing, what advice would you have, or do we have for supply chain professionals who also want to chase, and those that are chasing excellence? Because sometimes you're tired, because when you're chasing, I suppose when you're chasing, you do get tired.
Yes.
And maybe when you're also thinking about chasing, there could be some fear to say, where do I start? So what advice would you have for the supply chain profession?
I think for supply chain management and everything that we do, I think COVID exposed that we are alive. Hey, hello, we are supply chain people. Because people were like, what is supply chain management? What is that? That sounds like big English. But
it is big English. It is big English.
Because it's so dynamic. It's so deep, I think for me, the biggest thing is not accepting the status quo. One of the things that I learned, I did in my past studies, one of the things I actually learned here in this institution was there was a gentleman called Dr. Chan, and he was challenging us to think not in a normal manner, to actually challenge your own thinking, to say, is this good enough?
Yeah.
Is this still relevant?
Yeah.
How do we reevaluate this honestly? So what I love about supply chain management is supply chain segmentation, is that we take every little processes that are involved in everything and we try to do them better. In the beginning, it seems daunting, but there's a rule that compounds over time when you seek for excellence, even if it's 1% of excellence that seems minuscule in the beginning.
Yeah.
But as you continuously improve, it's the lean management type thinking. One of the judges I know heads up the Toyota Institute.
Yes, shout out to Kavita.
Yeah,
Kavita's thing, yeah. She does.
And it's lean thinking is really about improving that incremental thing that is already there. And that's what we started with. Because when we began, it was daunting. When I was at Easy Access or Imperial or DP World, as it's called now, Unitrans, there was always this big daunting. Now I come into SPV, it's huge, it's big, it's different. They have very strange terminology. They are bankers, they're not logisticians, and they're not supply chain people. And sometimes you're like, they don't hear me. But I said, you know what? I have to advocate, I have to engage, I have to collaborate. But at the end, I have to show the proper improvements and actually measure myself to those improvements. Be honest with it, measure it, improve it, celebrate those small wins, but then look at the future. And another thing is enjoy the process. I think a lot of times we're looking at the end goal, 3-5 year plan. We don't enjoy the process because we're always living in the future. We said we want to improve today, and so that it compounds into a destiny later on.
Yeah, and one can certainly see in your outlook and your eyes, the sparkle in your eyes tells us that you're enjoying the process. So thank you for that. Want to take the time to thank you for coming through. Thank you for having this conversation. Thank you for allowing us to dream with you, for allowing us to see that there's more. I love how you've been able to take what you call the past life and then plug it into where you are and make a difference, and also talking about how it's important to, as we're trying to chase excellence, the importance of looking at people. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. We hope to see you at next year's Logistics Achiever Awards. Thank you.